Hi, my name's Toby Mountjoy, and this is The Autism Show. In today's show, I wanted to explore more of the factors and reasons why we're seeing more and more children being diagnosed with autism. As we talked about in the last show, we don't really know the cause of autism, but what we do know is that we're seeing more and more children being diagnosed with this disorder every day all over the world. So firstly, we have to understand there's a difference between prevalence and incidence. Incidence rate is really the actual rate, like how many people actually have autism on the planet. Now, we don't really know the answer to that question because to do that, you'd need to go around to everybody's house and have like an amazing doctor and like go through the whole assessment process with everybody. There's many reasons why children don't get diagnosed. That may be access to healthcare. It may be that the parents don't think there's anything wrong and they don't bring the child to see somebody. There's a million reasons why somebody may not, go and get diagnosed, but may actually have autism. And that's what we call about the incidence rate, like how many people actually have autism. We then have the prevalence rate, which is how many people do we know that have actually been diagnosed, okay? And that's the rate we measure, and that's the rate on the graph that you can see that has been going up greatly. So it seems that there's a case here that we have been much better at finding people and diagnosing people over the last many years, and I'm going to go into some of the factors that have really probably increased that prevalence by a great deal. So first of all, we have to look at how a child gets diagnosed with autism. It's not a medical test, a blood test. It's really through behavioral observations from a trained clinician, okay? And this has changed a lot over the years. Doctors and psychologists typically used a book called the DSM, which stands for the Diagnostic Statistical Manual. And this is a book that psychologists and doctors use to diagnose different kinds of conditions. But it changes all the time. They modify it and they adapt it based upon more up-to-date knowledge. There was changes in 1987 when they introduced PD-NOS and more milder conditions. In 1994, the DSM-4 identified things like Asperger's, and again, greatly increased the breadth of the scope of who might get diagnosed. So this changes a lot, and these inclusions and these changes have led to many more children who are more mildly affected being diagnosed with the disorder. And they also changed the diagnostic criteria to children that had onset of the disorder after 30 months old. So that means that, if you're a bit older, like say 5 years old, you could now have a diagnosis of autism. So these changes really greatly increased the number of children who are being diagnosed with autism. There's also been elimination of certain categories, like, for example, Asperger's was taken out of the DSM in 2013. This was a category that were for children that had very good language skills, but also exhibit some of the social communication problems associated with autism. It may be the case now that many of those children would be diagnosed maybe with autism. We've also seen that professionals, doctors, pediatricians, diagnosticians have become far better at diagnosing children with autism. There's more training available. There's much more known about autism today. And the kinds of tools that are available to do diagnosis have also been vastly improved. Things like the ADOS, which is now sort of gold standard, can be learned and applied. And it's a test specifically for autism. Whereas before, many years ago, we would rely more upon just observations and maybe IQ tests or standardized language evaluations. Now there are really specific tests that you can do to look at autism. This has obviously led to more and more children becoming diagnosed as we have more of a skillful workforce all over the planet. This has also led to much earlier detection. That children now may be diagnosed at the age of 2.5, fairly commonly. When I began, many doctors would have been very reluctant to give a diagnosis until the child was age 5. And they would often tell parents to wait and see until around their age, which is definitely not the case now. Children are being diagnosed way earlier. Another factor is just like, in particular in the United States, lawyers and the legal system and insurance. Insurance is now widely available for pretty much most states in the United States. So if you're an employed person working in a company, you can probably have access to services for your child if you have a diagnosis of autism. Has been attained by lawyers, Laurie Unum in particular, going around the United States campaigning for in particular applied behavior analysis treatments to be included as part of insurance. So with the onset of all of these services becoming available to parents, one of the things they'll need to do to access them is get a diagnosis. This provides a lot of motivation for parents to seek out doctors, to get diagnosed so they can access all of the wealth of services that is now available. People are also seeking out treatment far more because the treatments are better nowadays. There's more of a wealth. I imagine in the 1960s, 70s, if you were out there looking for treatments, there would not have been a lot of treatment available. And most of it probably would have been out like a hospital or like a psychiatric ward or something very highly restrictive. We have many community-based kinds of interventions now available that are much more effective in helping children to learn to talk and play. And so with that advent, again, parents seek out the diagnosis so they can get access to those services. I think one of the just super major things that's been happening over the planet in the last 15 years is the internet. I mean, it has given us so much more knowledge at our fingertips. Anytime you want to know anything about anything, you can go to your phone, your computer, your tablet, whatever, go online and find just a wealth of resource available to you in your language. So, I mean, this has just really helped parents to understand more about their child's condition. If they have any slight worries, they're able to kind of go online, find out information, understand more, get given more direction in what to do, be able to instantly connect with other parents who are in similar situations or have experienced similar kinds of problems, chat rooms, forums, messaging. It's just incredible how much more information there is. And I think this has really helped tremendously in helping parents be better informed and educated and helping them to seek help at a younger age and understand more about what is going on. Obviously, Hollywood and the media also play a role. You know, there's been many films. The Rain Man was a very famous one many, many years ago, more my era. But recently, Hollywood's had many, many films with people with autism in it, which again, you know, Sesame Street has an autism character. It's just really mainstream now that people would really know all about it, which is really, really different than when I started in the field many years ago, where not many people knew what it was whatsoever. It was a very rare disorder. And only probably if you were in that kind of little world would you really know anything about it. Dramatically different today. Very much so because of, you know, social media, the internet, and what that brings to us every day. So these are many reasons we've discussed today why, you know, I think that there's been this massive increase in us, you know, being able to find and diagnose more children and increasing that prevalence rate greatly. You'll see a big difference in terms of like how many children may be diagnosed in the USA versus maybe provinces in Thailand. You know, that may not necessarily be because those children don't exist in Thailand, but it may be because many of the things we've just discussed have not really been fully developed there to help with the diagnostic process. So I hope this video has helped you to understand about that a little bit more, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you so much for watching.